Welcome. Today's lesson is on converting between fractions and decimals. Let's first go from a fraction to a decimal, because that really is the easiest. If I give you the fraction 3 over 4, we want to be able to write that as a decimal. Now, you by all means can use a calculator to do this by putting in a calculator this numerator of 3 divided by 4, and the calculator will tell you what the decimal representation is. But again, I want to show you how to do it by hand. Again, I take the numerator, which is a 3, and I'm going to do long division, okay, and divide by 4. Now, 4 doesn't go into 3, so we put a 0 here, and what I'm going to do now is place a decimal because we're going to go into the decimal places. So I put a 0 to the right, and I go, all right, 4 now does go into 30. 4 goes into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. And then we minus, just like long division. So I had to borrow from the 2. 10 minus 8 is 2. That's 0. Now I have a number here that's not 0, so I continue to put another 0 and another 0. Now 4 goes into 20. So 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. And as soon as you get a subtraction or a remainder of 0, you've got your decimal representation, the 0.75. So I come over here and I point 0.75. Now, a lot of mathematicians like to put the 0 to the left of the decimal to help us know that there isn't any whole parts to this fraction of 3/4, because you might be asked to convert a mixed number that has a whole part. Let's do something like, 5 2/3. Again, you can absolutely use a calculator to divide 2 by 3 and get the decimal representation. But what I recommend to get experience is I'm going to take the 5 and put a point here. I don't need to worry about the whole part. I know that's to the left of the decimal. All I need to do is convert this 2/3. So again, I come over here and I take that top number of 2, and I'm going to divide it by the bottom number of 3. And now since 3 doesn't go into 2, it goes into it 0 times, I'm going to put a decimal and a decimal, and then put a 0 to the right. So now I'm going 3 into 20. I don't want to put a 0 there, sorry. I want to put a 6 there, because 3 goes into 20 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18, and then I drop down a 2. Now, I'm going to continue this process of putting a 0 and going like this until this becomes a 0, but if you'll notice, 3 goes into 20 6 times. So this fraction ends up becoming a repeated decimal, because 6 times 3 is 18. 20 minus 18 is going to be 2. We put another 0 and another 0. So we'd do 6 times 3 is 18. This process continues on and on forever. So we have this decimal of 5.666 repeating, which you could do these dots at the end that says this pattern continues. We could also represent it with what they call a Repeten bar, where you put a little bar above it. That means that that decimal is repeating. So that's basically the process of converting fractions to decimals, or mixed numbers to decimal, including the ones that come up to be repeating. You just look for that repeating pattern eventually. And again, using a calculator, you would see it probably very quickly, that repeated pattern. Now let's talk about converting decimals to fractions. Before we convert decimals to fractions, I want to make sure we understand place value. So, and what I mean by that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What are the place values of these parts of the decimal? This 1 is in the tens place, the tenths place, not tens, but the tenths place, which means it's 1 out of 10. So if you were to write just 0.1 as a fraction, you would write it as 1 out of 10, 1/10. If we move to the 2, the 0.12 goes out to the hundredths place. So if you were to write 0.12 as a fraction, you would write it as 12 over 100. and then you would try or see if it reduces. So 12 and 100 are both even, so I'm going to divide by 2, get 6 over 50. 6 and 50 are still both even, so I'm going to divide by 2 and get 3 over 25. So 0.12 would be 3 over 25. If I was to continue out one more place to the thousandths place, that would be the thousandths place. So 0.123 would be equal to 123 over 1,000. And then we see if that reduces. And I don't believe it does because this number is not even and this number is not even. 5 doesn't go into them. So you could plug, oh, sorry, you can't quite see that on the video. There you go. 0.123 is equal to 123 over 1,000 because it's in the thousandths place. If you moved one more, it would be the 10,000ths place, or the 100,000ths place, or the millionths place. So if you had this whole fraction, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1 million, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decimal places, so there should be 6 zeros. That's how you convert terminating decimals. So again, let's do one more as a mixed number. Let's say I give you negative 3.225, and I want to convert that to a mixed number. Well, what I would do is I would leave the whole part the way it is, negative 3, and then I would take the decimal and put that 225 over, since I'm in 1, 2, 3, or the tens, hundreds, thousands place, I'm going to put it over 1,000. 3 zeros because we're 3 decimal places out. And then I see if I can reduce this fraction, which I can a little bit for sure because they're both divisible by 5. If I divide this top number by 5, I'm going to get 45 over, and if I divide the bottom number by 5, I'm going to get 200. They're still both divisible by 5, so I'm going to reduce it by another factor of 5 and get negative 3 over 9, or sorry, negative 3 and 9. 45 divided by 5 is 9. Divide 200 by 5, I'm going to get 40. So negative 3 and 9/40. You could always quickly check to make sure that's correct by plugging that into a calculator and making sure you get back out 3.225. The last one is repeating decimals, and I'm just going to keep these very simple repeating decimals. If I give you 0.7 repeating, the process of converting a repeating decimal, as long as it starts repeating right after the decimal, so the 0.7, the 7's repeating, all you need to do is take the number you're given, that 0.7, and put it over, not, since it's in the tens place, not over 10, but over 9. And if you don't believe me, take your calculator or off to the side, divide 7 by 9 and make sure you get 0.7 repeating. If you were to get something like 0.236 and all of that's repeating, now I want to emphasize that. It has to start repeating right after the decimal. If all of that's repeating, then all you need to do is take the 3 numbers you're given here, and since it's 1, 2, 3 decimal places, or the thousandths place, you're not going to put it over 1,000, but since it's repeating, you're going to put it over 1 less than 1,000, or 999. Again, if you're uncertain about that, just take your calculator, divide 236 by 999, and you'll see that you get 0.236, 236, 236, and it'll just keep going. Let's do one more. Let's take negative 6.2, let's do 24 repeating, 24 repeating, okay? Now again, like our terminating decimals, I'm not going to worry about the whole part. I know it's going to be a -6 and some fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this decimal now, this 0.24 that's repeating, and convert that to a fraction. Since it starts to repeat right after the decimal, I'm going to take the 24, and since it goes out to the hundreds place, or there's 2 places to the right of the decimal or into the decimal place, I'm going to put it over not 100 because we're repeating. I'm going to put it over 99, one less than 100. So if the decimals are repeating, you always do it one less than that decimal place would do on a terminating decimal. Now I'm going to see if this reduces before I stick it next to the whole part. In other words, 24 and 99 are both divisible by 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8. 99 divided by 3 is 33. And so I get 8 over 33, which doesn't reduce. So I come up here and I do 8 over 33. And there is the mixed number version of this repeating decimal. So this should be able to get you to do the homework for today, and we will see you next time.